Chapter 5 Southern Sumatra. Part 2 Primitive Peoples. The races and cultures of Sumatra. In the preceding discussion of the various peoples of Sumatra, it has been shown that wave after wave, it has been shown that wave after wave of cultural influence had swept over the island from the dimension of India, bringing certain of the groups to a higher state of civilization. This process had gone so far that the Dutch, gaining control, had little more to offer to the advanced groups than the idea of centralized political government, and with it security of person and property. When the first Malaysians came to Sumatra, they presumably found Negritos and Bedouins who wandered through the jungles with their dogs, digging roots, fishing, and shooting game with bow and willow gun. The people lived in rude shelters, were scattered in small family groups, and were led by their oldest and most experienced male members. Judging by the Jakun, the primitive Malaysians of the peninsula, it's doubtful whether the original Malaysian settlers were one bit more civilized than the indigenes they found on the island. Gradually, however, as the Malaysians received more and more cultural elements from further Malaysian settlers from the mainland, they became culturally superior to the white tribes and were able to exterminate the Negritos and push the Bedouins back into the more desolate parts of the island. The peoples of the western islands left Sumatra before they had received the full benefit of these later cultural influences. Thus, reckoning from the culture of Mentawei, the first traits which the Malaysians of Sumatra received include the use of pile houses, the rigger canoe, and the sailboat, the domestication of tubular goods including taro and yam, the preparation of sago, and the domesticated pig and chicken. With the coming of pile buildings came the use of a man's house, and the people divided their villages into hamlets, each hamlet under its own leaders. Before the actual intrusion of the Hindus in the early centuries AD, the Malaysians had probably domesticated the carabao and certainly had learned to grow rice, at least the dry variety. Rice was called beras. However, as a fruit from its resemblance to other foods the Malaysians already had. The Malaysians now also learned certain crafts, including iron working and division of labor stated among the male population, megalithic monument making and headhunting, megalithic monument making and headhunting were early trades which are suppressed by the Hindus. The first because the Hindu introduced a different variety of large stonework. The second because it was too it was too barbaric for the advantages of the conquerors. Probably the most the most important of the pre-Hindu trades introduced was the idea of the ship. Once gathered into large ship units under ship, the Malaysians were better able to dispossess the Bedouins from the choice regions of the islands. The blood revenge of war group was now far larger than before, and these large groups were able to maintain their numbers and affiliation by intermarriage with one another. Probably, even before the Hindu period, the territorial aspect of the ship recommenced to break down with the rise of towns, and the ship chiefs became townships. The reason why all primitive peoples readily adopt ships, and why all civilized people probably have gone through a ship stage, is because it enlarges the blood relationship group, and it thus gives security. With the further advance of civilization, the territorial unit supersedes the genealogical, and ships are no longer of advantage. Once the ship is no longer of advantage, it becomes of disadvantage to the onus of exogamy and collective liability. It is far easier to persuade cerebral citizens to live in a town or cast undesirable citizens out of a town than it is to admit or cast out members from a ship. Properly speaking, a ship should not be able to admit or release its members at all. A ship system is in complete form has its members born into and die in its mother form. In Sumatra, we can find the ship in all stages of degeneration and the various peoples passing into town and territorial units. As has been shown, first the Hindus and then the Dutch has done this transformation. The traits introduced by the Hindus were of much the same nature toward the island and have been summarized for the Bataks. They included wet rush culture and cloth, cotton and the spinning wheel, but more important were the Hindu concepts of life and religion. It obviously was due to Hindu influence that small Malaysian towns were able to strive with one another from vast commercial empires. The question naturally arises as to why the Negrito of Sumatra should have become extinct and the Bedouin ruthlessly pushed out of the way. Evidently, these races were unable to assimilate traits of higher culture when historical change gave them the opportunity. This would seem to the crux of the race superiority problem. No people can be judged as to their capacities from a mere chance stage of culture. To do this would lay one open to the historical blunder of Tacitus when he qualified the Germans as being unfit for mental or physical work, laboris ad ceoperum non eadem patentia. Yet, when people like the Veda of Ceylon, who for centuries have been exposed to a rich Buddhistic civilization, respond by taking to the jungles, it would seem certain that they lack some of the ambition displayed by the Caucasian and the Mongoloid. The same charge may be laid to the dark of the Kubu and light people of Sumatra. It is only within the recent years and the insistence of the Dutch that these races are being assimilated. Finally, nothing in the history of Sumatra demonstrates that any race may gain superiority over its neighbors by maintaining its blood pure from foreign infiltration. The Mentawei Islanders admit no strangers in marriage, and in fact formerly admitted no strangers at all the islands unless they were flattered and accepted Mentawei customs. The Malays, on the other hand, will welcome anyone who becomes converted to Islam. As a result, the Malays, who are composite of all races, are the progressive people of Insulinde. This same readiness to accept the new in all its forms and variations is in fact the true dividing line between the primitive and the civilized.